Members of Parliament, support staff, visitors in the public tribune, radio listeners, TV viewers, all those following this meeting via social media, and of course to members of the media, a good morning all. Welcome to this Central Committee meeting for today, Wednesday, April 17th, 2024. This is Central Committee meeting number 17. At this time, I want to give a special word of welcome to the Minister of Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment and Infrastructure, VROMI, Minister Egbert Duran and his support staff. We have established a quorum of 9 members. I invite you to stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. I have received notice of absence from the members Irian and Jacobs. Are there any other notifications from the floor of Parliament? We have MP Christophe Emmanuel. MP Emmanuel, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and good morning to everyone, the Honourable Minister and his support staff, my honourable colleagues, and the people of St. Maarten. Good morning to everyone. Madam Chair, just a congratulatory announcement. I would like to congratulate Claudio Boncampo on becoming the Chief Commercial Officer, so the CCO, I believe, I stand to be corrected on it, for Sunrise Airways. And he'll be, one of us, Madam Chair, 33 years of experience he have held there at Winair, and now he is taking on a new job. So I'm simply saying congratulations to him and his family, and I think it's a good thing when our people reach 2 different heights, Madam Chair Lady. So congratulations to the good gentleman. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that notification, MP Christophe Emmanuel. I don't see any other member requesting a notification, so we can go on over to the agenda point for this meeting. And we have the first agenda point, which is the Nature Policy Plan Sint Maarten 2021-2025. This document is registered on the IS 031 of the parliamentary year 2022-2023 and is dated September 22nd, 2022. Secondly, we have the advice concerning the appointment of the first acting Secretary General of Parliament. Thirdly, we have the proposal to amend the function book of the Secretariat of Parliament. And fourthly, we have the proposal to amend several articles and addition of several new articles to the Rules of Order for Parliament. Going over to agenda point number 1, the Nature Policy Plan Sint Maarten 2021-2025. On September the 22nd, as mentioned, of the year 2022, we received the Nature Policy Plan Sint Maarten 2021-2025 from the Minister of VROMI. This document is registered as incoming document IS 031 of the parliamentary year 2022-2023. And this, of course, can be found on the general themes of Parliament. The Nature Policy Plan Sint Maarten was submitted to Parliament in accordance with Article 2 of the National Ordinance. And that article states, 1, once every 5 years, the Minister establishes a natural nature policy plan in which the international obligations entered into in this regard are also implemented. 2, the nature policy plan requires the approval of Parliament. 3, the nature policy plan will in any case contain A, the objectives regarding nature and the landscape that must be achieved during the planning period. B, an overview of priorities in the field of nature and the landscape that need to be addressed within the planning period. And C, the nature conservation values to be taken into account when implementing the policy. D, a list of national parks, both terrestrial and marine, which consist of natural parks established by national decree containing general measures. When drawing up the nature policy plan, the minister takes the spatial development plans into account. The nature policy plan serves as a general framework for nature policy. Every year before September the 1st, the minister reports to Parliament on the status of the implementation of the nature policy plan. All members are in possession of this nature policy plan. And so at this time, I want to give the floor to the Minister of Romy, Mr. Egbert Duran, for his opening remarks and/or presentation, if he has such. So, Minister Duran, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Good morning to you. Good morning to my support staff here with me, Ms. Narain from the Policy Department, Ms. Kippy from the Policy Department as well as Ms. Rodriguez from my cabinet. Special good morning to everyone that is tuned in, and good morning to the honorable members of Parliament. Thank you for the invitation. I have quite a brief introduction as to the Nature Policy Plan 2021-2025. This has been a work in progress in the ministry for quite some time, and I must say that it's the first time ever that it has been done and published and finalized. I would like to thank Ms. Narain and the entire policy department and everyone that played a pivotal role in seeing us come to this reality here where we are today. And I look forward to any questions and or queries that members of Parliament might have in regards to the nature policy plan. I must say that it is definitely a step in the right direction, and I think that we can definitely build on it and continue as we safeguard our environment for our sweet Sint Maarten. Thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to any queries.
Thank you, Minister Duran. I look to the members of Parliament for any questions and queries regarding the nature policy plan. As I mentioned, we have the uncommon part in this national ordinance where it pertains to this particular policy needing the approval of Parliament. So the possibility is now given to members of Parliament to speak on the topic of the nature policy plan, and I see that MP Gomes is ready to take the floor. MP Gomes, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady, and good morning to you, Rafir, my colleagues, the Minister and his support staff here with us today, and those joining us online or in the Tribune. Madam Chair Lady, this is a bit of a point that is far long in the tooth, as they would say. However, I do have one question thus far for the Minister. So, if we take into account of this nature policy, section 2.3.1, terrestrial threats, threats to the terrestrial nature of Sint Maarten, including invasive fauna, development or conversion of land use, erosion and waste. Historically, the nature of Sint Maarten was disturbed primarily by activities related to agriculture, breeding of livestock and harvesting of salt. Nowadays, the rapid tourist development and the large and increasing population density mean that nature and the remaining green spaces are experiencing direct threats from spatial developments. Approximately 84% of Sint Maarten's land cover is parcel for private ownership or for long lease purposes. These developments and the accompanying roads are encroaching and excavating higher into the hills and threatening the remaining untouched habitats such as seasonal evergreen forests, leading to habitat loss, fragmentation, and deterioration, as well as increasing the incidences of erosion, landslides, and water management complications. Due to these developmental pressures, it is unsure if the same number of plant species exist today, and especially the current status of the two endemic plant species is unknown. Development in the hills also threatens the habitat of Sint Maarten's endemic Anguilla bank bush anole. So, taking that account, that section of the nature policy into consideration, where the risks of commercial development is explicitly outlined, I find myself asking the same question I asked when we were discussing the spatial development policy strategy, whatever. Because I asked in that meeting last year, I think, or 2022, is there or has there been any consideration given to pausing the granting of large-scale commercial building permits for any large-scale development, actually, commercial, residential, etc.? Because at the time when I asked that question, it was because, not hitting the pause button while you're working on a nature policy and a spatial development policy strategy / plan is essentially like painting a house while it's still under construction. And the response I got was that no, that had not been a consideration. That was the response I got in Parliament. The response that I got outside of Parliament via the media was that it was crazy to stop, development because that would stop the economy. There's precedence for this already, right? How deep is the channel? How far is the channel? To Anguilla, where they paused for 24 months the exact same large-scale developments to prevent exactly this terrestrial threat scenario that is in this nature policy. So I'm just wondering how policy lines up with action by the respective ministry, because it's not just the Ministry of Rami that has this conundrum on its plate. And that for me is it for right now, Madam Chair, and I'll await any other questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Gums. I now give the floor to MP Ludmila De Wever. MP De Wever, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Good morning to you. Good morning to the Minister, his team, my colleagues, everyone tuned in here. This is very, very quick question, actually, because I think it's a perfect opportunity to bring up something that was discussed earlier without the Minister being present here. So I remember last time asking a question regarding the underwater museum and what was granted for that underwater museum to exist. And it was my understanding that we granted a lease for the sea floor, so the seabed, as we would call it. And I was just wondering if when that was done, if it was taken into consideration what was going to be put in to the nature policy, because the nature policy is talking about how we protect our waters, so basically plant life, animal life can thrive. But I just don't understand the link with a nature policy of protecting when you have underwater museum that has plastics on it still that are not actually going to be a positive addition to the thriving environment there. So that was it. Very simple. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP De Wever. I see no other member of Parliament indicating the need to speak at this time, and so to the questions posed, I would like to add the following and ask if the Minister can please respond to those. Minister, is it possible to provide some type of status on the implementation of this policy as is required in accordance with the law, the before September 1st date? But specifically, I would like to know if there's any status that can be reported on as to the execution of this policy for the year 2023. Anything to report that has been executed on the basis of the nature policy, St. Martin. Secondly, Minister, I believe it was in your absence when I asked about the material that has been dumped at the Bel-Air Beach, and in your absence, the answer was given that the material has been dumped there to be subsequently taken away. The material has not yet been taken away, and if the Minister can please go into that question in terms of who dumped it, and is it still the intention to have it removed from that location? Can the Minister provide an update as well as the recent consultation / implementation as far as the hillside policy is concerned? Can the Minister elucidate what policy is followed by the government when it comes to consulting with the Nature Foundation on projects on St. Martin? So is it at the discretion of the ministry to decide today we request an advice or a consultation with the Nature Foundation on Project X, but tomorrow it mightn't be necessary? Or is there a line, is there a policy that is followed with respect to consultation with the Nature Foundation for projects, and that the ministry follows a particular line in this respect? Is it based on the size? Is it based on the discretion? So what exactly is it, given the fact that there is a SLA with Nature Foundation as far as that communication is concerned? I want to say Mr. Chairman, through you. Minister, to you, the matter of the beach policies, one that the Ministry of TIAT maintains, as well as VROMI's beach policy, and I have asked this question before. With respect to the beach policy and the reference to the ownership of the beach in our civil code and how the beach is to be managed by the government, beach in general, how does the ministry view and interprets the article in the civil code regarding the beaches that is on the book 5, article 26, if that can be responded to? The minister, I don't know if you were in Parliament when I explained what I received as answer to my question on the court case that was filed against the government by the management of Sun Resort regarding the beach in Mullet Bay. And apparently, a court case was filed in order to have the structures on that beach removed. A verdict was given in November. That verdict was re-emphasized in February of this year. Upon my request, I received the verdict of February and not November. The one of February is actually instructing the government to execute the November 2023 verdict of the court. So, can the decision of the court of November 2023 regarding that request to have the structures removed, can that decision be provided to Parliament? The decision that I did receive is, as I mentioned, of February this year, in which the government is instructed to execute the November verdict on the penalty of, I believe it was 500 guilders a day, up to a maximum of 50,000. That's what I read from what was provided in the February decision of the court. The minister, the issue of the old bridge, so-called old bridge in Simpson Bay, and the development that is taking place there, can the minister provide some specifics regarding that? Minister, with these additional questions to what was asked by members of Parliament, I now look to you to see how you would like to address those. Minister, you have the floor.
Can I get a few minutes to caucus with my team?
Sure. Let's say, Minister, 5 minutes, and that will take us to about 11:46. Meeting adjourned for 5 minutes. welcome back all members of Parliament, the Minister and his support staff, and all others. We had adjourned briefly for the Minister to caucus in terms of providing the answers to questions posed by members of Parliament, and at this time, the Minister will give an indication as to how he would like to proceed with these answers. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Thank you to the honorable members of Parliament for the questions posed. I don't have all the answers for the questions, so I look to you, Madam Chair, as to an indication as what can be a way forward. I do have about maybe 50% of the answers on hand. The others will take some time.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, I would propose that you provide the answers that you can give at this time and that an understanding be arrived at with you in terms of what period would be necessary for you to provide the other answers. I would want to suggest that these be provided in writing. However, this document will not be sent to the public meeting until all answers can be provided, and it has to go to the public meeting eventually for a formal decision of Parliament. So, Minister, I would invite you to provide answers that you do have at this time, mentioning the Member of Parliament as well as noting which questions you have that cannot be provided at this time, so that that is clear for the records, which answers are would still be pending after you have given those that you are about to give right now. Minister, you have the floor, and you may continue.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. I'll delve into the first question / query by MP Gums with respect to doing a pause on large developments, whether commercial or residential. One of the issues where that is concerned, especially after doing research with the department, persons own their land. Persons have their private land, and it's quite difficult to tell someone what they can and cannot do with their land if they want to build a home and or build a commercial complex to enhance the quality of their life for them and their families. So there's nothing that we have in place that can block someone legally from executing things of that nature or building on their property. Of course, if someone is not in accordance with our building code, then we can enforce and or tell them they have to correct certain things on their building plans. But to do a building stop, it's quite extreme unless I'm understanding the Member of Parliament in another form or fashion. I move on to the question posed by MP De Wever with respect to the underwater museum. Regulations and rules, conditions were placed in the lease agreement that the persons had to adhere to when it comes to nature. And once, I believe, the plastic was noticed in one of the inspections, which the inspection department was notified, and I just have to verify how that was addressed. I move on to questions posed by MP Westcott. Can you report on what has been conducted on the Nature Policy Plan up to 2023? I have a few points. The Corena project, which is the baseline terrestrial and marine biodiversity assessment. The bird platform with the Nature Foundation. The vegetation report by Karmabai, 2022. The invasive species project undertaken by the Nature Foundation, and ongoing work to establish Little as a nature park. I move on to the question by MP Westcott with regards to the hillside policy. The hillside policy is being implemented. With respect to the Nature Foundation, once we have projects that more than likely have to do with vegetation or beaches, they are 9 times out of 10 consulted, especially when we deal with, like I mentioned, beachside property or any property that's close to the water, but they're also consulted in different areas as well. So there's no obligation for the departments to consult with the Nature Foundation, but we have a working agreement, which most of the time they are consulted, and especially when it has to do with large developments. With respect to the court verdict, yes, the court verdict will be provided. I guess it was an oversight by the ministry at the time. Regarding the issue of the old bridge in Simpson Bay, yesterday I received communication from the Ministry of Education, particularly the cultural department, and they are busy with the inspection department and CAPASM to enforce, because they are of the opinion, based on what they've seen, that the monument is being compromised. No permit was issued, so that is being handled as we speak. That is all the information I have on that subject at this point. And with regards to the other points and queries, I would like to provide those in writing, as I don't have the answers readily available. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister of Vromi. Does any other member of Parliament have the need to ask something or give a comment on the topic? We see we see MP Marlin. MP Marlin, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. Good morning. Yeah, it takes so long to read. Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, colleague MPs. Good morning to the Honorable Minister and his support staff. To the listening audience, good morning. First, I'd like to say congratulations on reaching this far with this prestigious nature policy. I have just 3 questions I'd like to ask to you, Madam Chair, to the Minister, which is, who all was consulted in putting this nature plan together? How much time went into preparing this plan? And lastly, is there any protected areas in St. Maarten? And if so, which are these areas? I thank you.
Thank you, MP Marlin. We have MP Gums. MP Gums, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just then a follow-up question to the answer that the Minister provided. A easy way to resolve that we don't have a way to stop, etc., would be zoning. So at what is the status then of the zoning laws and regulations that we've been hearing about? If we could just get an update on that, the status of that package then. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Gums. We have MP Marlin. Are you indicating you want the floor, or you okay? Oh, okay. Minister, could you? I just want to confirm with you that you cannot provide an answer right now regarding the Bel-Air Beach. Is that one of those put off to be answered? So the department at this time does not have an update based on the answer that was provided about the removal of the material? You don't. Okay, then you said, Minister, that you have a working agreement with the Nature Foundation, but are there any policy lines with respect to the consultation? You also mentioned for bigger projects. What is considered a big project? What does the ministry consider a big project? I also take note that the reference to the civil code and the management of beaches in the civil code, that is an answer yet to be provided. I thank you for your response regarding the Simpson Bay, the old bridge in Simpson Bay / the corner. And Minister, can your ministry provide a technical explanation of the implementation of the hillside policy? A technical one. Above how many meters? What is considered a hill? Those kind of details. So, because if today we see in several locations a structure at the top of what we will call a hill, the question would be, is the hillside policy applicable? If not, why not? And so that kind of a technical explanation, the hillside policy too, is a very old policy. And the question is, how is it? So a technical explanation as to the usage and observance of the hillside policy. And then, Minister, I want to zoom in on the question asked by MP Gums and specifically ask you, what is the situation currently with respect to the proposed development plan for the area of Coopercoy-Mullet Bay? I remember you some months ago giving an answer indicating that due to whatever technical issues with the plan for that area, the ministry was looking at the overall development plan. And I would like you to provide an update on that matter. So that development plan in particular, as well as any progress being made with the overall island-wide development plan, or development and or zoning plan for St. Martin. Mr. Minister, I look at you and ask you how you would like to address these additional questions posed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, MP Marlin, and MP Gums for the additional points posed. I would require about 2 weeks to get back with all the responses.
These as well as those outstanding in
Yes,
the
indeed.
first set of questions. Thank you, Minister. As I mentioned before, we will await these answers in order to further the nature policy plan and the necessary approval that is required from Parliament on this plan. So members of Parliament, unless there is any other comment, I want to hereby adjourn this meeting for a few minutes, thanking the Minister and his support staff for your participation on this agenda point. And a report shall be made of this meeting because we are preparing for the public meeting to elaborate and handle the nature policy plan. So this meeting is going to be adjourned for the next 5 minutes. Meeting adjourned. Members of Parliament and all others tuned in to this meeting, welcome back after a brief adjournment to now go over to agenda point number 2 in this Central Committee meeting of Parliament. Agenda point number 2 regards the advice concerning the appointment of the first acting Secretary General of Parliament. Some history regarding this appointment or this proposed appointment is the following. On March the 3rd, 2016, Parliament appointed Mrs. A. Groen-Gums as the first acting Secretary General of the Parliament of Sint Maarten. With the honorable discharge of Mrs. Groen-Gums as of September 11, 2021, the position of first acting Secretary General became vacant. The position of first acting Secretary General was advertised in local and regional newspapers in the year 2022. After going through several application procedures with several candidates and carefully considering the interview results, the Presidium decided to propose Ms. Jessica S.K. Weeks as the new first acting Secretary General of Parliament in accordance with Article 13, Paragraph 1 of the Rules of Order of Parliament. This proposal was also discussed in the faction leaders meeting. Ms. Weeks has been employed at the government of St. Maarten and has related work experience, in addition to the fact that she meets the job requirements as first acting SG at Parliament. All members have received by email all necessary documentation pertaining to this proposed appointment. And I look to the members of Parliament and ask who I can give the floor to at this time. I see MP Christophe Emmanuel is requesting the floor. MP Emmanuel, you have the floor.
Yes, Madam Chair Lady, I thank you for this opportunity. Madam Chair, I have given my objections to the proposed candidates for various reasons. Madam Chair, and I'm sticking to my point as to why the proposed candidate will not get my support. And for the simple fact, Madam Chair, I don't think that the individual can be fair when it comes to being in Parliament and dealing with members of Parliament, for the simple reason, Madam Chair, is that the individual came out of the ministry of the Prime Minister, Madam Chair, and on a few occasions here on the floor of Parliament to ourselves, in a back and forth, we have had little situations, if I should use that word for lack of a better word, Madam Chair. And that's why I have objected from it from the beginning, Madam Chair Lady, that I would not be approving said individual for the opposition, and I think it should go back to the drawing board and it should go back out to the general public and go back out in the newspapers and try to seek someone else. I thank you very much.
Thank you for those comments on the proposal, MP Christophe Emmanuel. Are there any other members who require the floor? Okay, I see. I thought I saw MP Jacobs indicating such, and indeed it is. MP Jacobs, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning to you. Good morning to the griffier, my colleagues here in Parliament, and those tuning into this meeting, Central Committee meeting. We're now at the second agenda point. First of all, I apologize for my lateness for the meeting in general, but I'm happy I was able to make it for this part because it is unfortunate when we talk about promoting St. Maarten born, bred, and educated professionals that they are then judged not according to the criteria that is stated, but according to personal sentiments. Madam Chair, the professionality of the young lady in question, Ms. Weeks, is evident from the documentation provided, and indeed has served this country in other capacities as a policy advisor and also, yes, in the cabinet of the Prime Minister, but always serving St. Maarten with integrity and the interest of St. Maarten at heart. So I believe she is more than qualified to fill the function based on her line of study as a legal with an LLM upleiding and has the necessary experience to be able to support this parliament in a fair and integral manner. Definitely when she was hired, it was for that reason. And indeed, she has proven to be quite diplomatic in handling the affairs of the people of St. Maarten in all of her previous engagements. I also experienced this young lady as the head of the CCSU when I came in, and I was amazed at the manner in which she managed a meeting with unions and Prime Minister, and at the time I had just sworn in and was technically her boss, but she did not give me any type of favor in that meeting, which spoke to her integrity, and that was my very first experience with her outside of the functioning that I experienced internally. So I do hope that definitely was not a political appointment, and so therefore that stigma should not be attached to professionals who take up such functions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Jacobs. I look around, I don't see any other member of parliament wishing to take the floor. So if there are no more comments, the advice of the Central Committee containing the recommendation to Parliament will be sent to the public meeting for Parliament's handling and approval. So with that, we have then come to the end of that agenda point, and we go over and continue with agenda point number 3. And that is the proposal to amend the function book of the Secretariat of Parliament. As is known, the Secretariat of Parliament is the central service unit of Parliament and is charged with providing organizational, administrative, and legal support to the Parliament in the performance of our duties. Over the years, since the revision of the function book for the Secretariat of Parliament in 2015, it has been established that there is a need for additional functions, FTEs, within the formation of the Secretariat to further strengthen the functioning and provision of support to the Parliament in its entirety. Currently, the formation of the Secretariat has 14 FTEs, according to the current function book. Through this proposal, the Presidium is proposing to add a number of functions to the formation of the Secretariat of Parliament of St. Maarten. A permanent challenge is always the space available in the current Parliament building. Nevertheless, the following functions are proposed with the future in perspective. These functions proposed to be added to the function book of Parliament are the following: a legal advisor, an extra DIF officer, an extra PR officer / assistant to the griffiers, the Secretaries General, and a secretary to the Secretary General, in other words, a secretary to the griffier. All members have received the advice as it regards the expansion of the Secretariat of Parliament with the 4 above-mentioned additional functions, including the amended formation plan of the Secretariat of Parliament, the amended organizational chart of the Secretariat, and the job descriptions of the new positions in the Secretariat of Parliament. To which member of Parliament can I give the floor if necessary? There seemed to be no need for deliberations on this proposal, and thus, there being no more comments, the advice from this Central Committee meeting will be sent to the public meeting for further handling and ratification. Thank you, members of Parliament. Now we go over to agenda point number 4 for this meeting, and that is the proposal to amend several articles and add several new articles to the Rules of Order of Parliament. It has been some time now that a proposal for a new Rules of Order for the Parliament of St. Maarten has been discussed in the faction leaders' meetings during different compositions and constellations of Parliament. With a view to the more efficient functioning of the Parliament and the experience during the COVID-19 pandemic, the Presidium is proposing herewith to make a number of urgent changes. These additions and amendments relate to the legal basis for a code of conduct for members of parliament, the removal of a member from a meeting, a tie voting regulation, the option to remove visitors and audience members, and clarifying the quorum requirements for public meetings. This change also introduces the possibility for virtual meetings in special circumstances. All members have received the advice as it regards the amendment of several articles in the Rules of Order of Parliament and the addition of several new articles. Does any member require deliberations on this topic? That does not seem to be, no, we do have an MP who wishes to talk to the topic, and that's MP Christophe Emmanuel. MP Emmanuel, you have the floor.
Yes. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Concerning the code of conduct, and I just have one question. The issue with the removal of a member of parliament, how is that going to function? How is that going to work? And under what kind of circumstances can a member of parliament be removed? Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you, MP Christophe Emmanuel. Firstly, with respect to the first part of your question regarding the code of conduct, what is being done with this proposal here is just to establish a basis for the creation of a code of conduct. So that's what we're doing in the rules of order. So the discussions on coming to a code of conduct will still continue. So that's one part of it. And we have, and I'll pull up the matter pertaining to the removal of a member, and then I can give it to you exactly how it is stated in our proposal. I see our Secretary General is. By the way, it is outlined in the proposal, but unless you have it at hand, sorry, MP Christophe? Article, oh, okay. You request an adjournment for 2 minutes. Sure, okay. Let's do that. Let's adjourn until 12:21. Meeting adjourned. We hereby resume the meeting after a brief adjournment to make sure that members of parliament are in possession of all of the necessary documentation relating to the agenda point. And currently, in our rules of order, Article 50, it is stated that if the speaker permits himself the use of insulting expressions, disrupts the order, breaches his obligation to maintain confidentiality, or assents or encourages unlawful acts, he is admonished by the president and called to order. Paragraph 2, if the speaker does not heed the admonishment of the president may deny him the floor. For Article 51, which currently reads, a member who is denied the floor in a meeting is not allowed to take part any longer in the deliberations on that subject. The proposal for Article 51 is explained in the document that members have received as follows. The proposed Article 51 regulates the consequences if a member is denied the floor by the president, as is currently in our rules of order. With this change, the possibility is created to proceed with the removal of a member from the meeting, just as with the parliament, it is currently with the Parliament of Aruba and the Parliament of Curacao. It has become apparent that it is necessary to include this in the rules of order in the event that a member is guilty of conduct as referred to in Article 50 of our current rules of order, and subsequently continues to refuse to carry themselves in a decent manner. It is important to note that this regulation does not go as far as, for example, the regulation in the Parliament of Curacao regarding the removal from the building. In our case, it is from the hall, considering that we only have one building. So the Article 51 that is currently being proposed is a follow-up to the current Article 50 in the Rules of Order. MP Emmanuel, you wanted to remark something?
Yes, Madam Chair, I thank you for the explanation, and it comes to now my second point. I know that we have the police officer here, so that's why I asked the question, how will this individual be removed from the hall of Parliament? Would it be by security? Would it be by the law enforcement officer? Would it be by the chair, by the Khafir? But how will that process be done, Madam Chair?
It is the so-called removal, exiting from the hall is at the discretion of the President of Parliament, and if needed, then I don't see the President of Parliament, he or she having to actually escort the member out, but then the law enforcement officer will come into play. I hope it never reaches to that under my watch at least, but in the event that it had to occur and someone decide, no, I've said what I said and I've done what I did and I am moving, then we would have to go to step 2, which would be, as I explained. So, thank you, MP Christophe Emmanuel, for your questions and deliberations. Any other member of Parliament wishes to talk to this matter? If not, the further discussions, because there are some other necessary changes to the rules of order, and those discussions will continue about those other changes, but they have been identified. But in order to get these out of the way, we have done a similar procedure like we did with inserting the question hour, which we also took from the ongoing discussions on the amendments to the rules of order, and now we have that in place. So with these, we will also have these in place as we continue with a larger review of our rules of orders. order. So again, members of parliament, thank you very much. And this advice will be sent to the public meeting for further handling and ratification. Members of parliament, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this meeting. I want to thank you for your participation, and I hereby close this meeting. Meeting closed.